Hello, hello, testing, testing. All right. I'm sorry it's so late, guys, but hopefully it's not too late, or maybe you wake up early and hear this. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I got the book up here so you can kind of see where I am. I think we ended off talking about the large size, high density, and social heterogeneity of urban developments. So Lewis Worth, he was basically saying when he ended off with social heterogeneity, he was referring to how cultures are very different when you get to urban environments because you have people coming from different cultural backgrounds. So it's easier to be different. Um, when you're in a homogeneous area, which is a rural area, you're expected to behave like everyone else in your area. But when you're in a city, you can basically try to get into alternative culture, alternative lifestyle, alternative religion, and people don't care. Like I was saying earlier, of course, to a certain extent, but that's one huge aspect of living in a city. It's most likely that you may have a different religion than the place you grew up if you grew up in a rural environment. Because you will interact with people of different religions or different belief systems. So on a quiz, I might have a couple of questions asking things like if uh, everyone goes to the local football game every Friday night, that's a rural thing because that's a rural tradition. Everybody support that same team. But in the urban environment, you may have some people go to a play, some people go to a football game. You have some people go to the show, like I said, go watch the movie or something. Um, but those different ideas that people might have, what they think is fun. I think it's fun to stay at home and watch wrestling when some of you guys probably think it's fun to go to a party where other people think it's fun to go to a bowling alley. But that's the aspects of urban environment. Um, Also, it attract more people who want to change their lifestyle. So if you, um, especially like when you think about when they think about like sexual preference and things of that nature, uh, those people probably may not fit into the small town environment, but they move to the big city so they can live the way they want. And we see that a lot. All right. Increasing percentage of people in cities. This section was just referring to how the number of cities are much higher. The number of cities with millions of people, or rather large cities, are much higher in MDCs because basically there's more people. Okay, since there's more people, let's look at China. If you got a billion people, and it's easy to divide them up into well, let's say 10 to 20 cities for over 10 million people because you have a lot of people to begin with. But most people in China are not urban residents because even with 10% of their country, you're talking about 100 million people living in cities, even though uh, even though most of them don't. All right, so that's a low percentage of people living in cities, even though they have a lot of huge cities. And that has just changed in this past century because in this past century, LDCs are starting to grow. Remember, they got the medical revolution, so population is growing because the culture is still the same and people staying alive. So you're going to have these huge boosts of population. Also, with cities growing because of globalization, where we can open up factories and other places where we can industrialize other places so that they can participate in the global market. You got these cities being created around these factories. Remember, we talking about foreign direct investment. A lot of places in China that's huge is because they have special economic zones in which uh, people move so they can work for these foreign companies. All right, that's enough of that. Sorry, I got a little distracted wrestling on right now. I think that's pretty much it for key issue two. They go into pretty much specifics, but it's not that big of a deal. All right, key issue three: why are consumer services distributed in a regular pattern? This is going to talk about the reason why cities are in certain locations. This is word that's not in this book, but it's definitely going to probably be on the AP test. It's called agglomeration. Make sure you write this down. Agglomeration. Agglomeration is just a gathering of different services together. You remember when I was talking about, let's say, they have a factory at a certain city. Once that factory is there, people are going to need a place to live. Then you're going to need a company that help build houses. Then you're going to need a company that provide for those utilities. They're going to have a grocery store. You're going to have schools. All this stuff is going to be agglomeration or businesses that are like each other is going to connect together. So if you look down Orland Park, you go down LaGrange. You got Orland Mall, and then you got all the different stores, just in case you don't want to shop in that mall. Then you got the restaurant, so you can have a place to eat while you're shopping. And then you have um, banks in that area, just in case you run out of money while you're shopping. Then they got family places where you can have fun while you're shopping. Y'all get the point. It's agglomeration. All these businesses, they gather together in certain areas. The reason how they choose this area is called the central place theory. So let's get into that. All right. So central place theory is basically you're saying you have the perfect center of economic activity. The area around it is its hinterland, and that's the area that's affected by that central service. So, for instance, you have a Walmart, and then Walmart serves a certain area that's around it. Okay, um, a better example is like Chicago. Downtown you got the Chicago Loop, which has an agglomeration of different businesses. Now they have a large threshold or a large hinterland that surrounds it, and that's called the Chicagoland area. So those are all the places that's affected by Chicago. Um, how they define it or how they draw it out, they determine where their center point is, and then they draw out. The reason why it's a circle because it's not perfect in life. If you see these circles, y'all see these little spaces here. Those spaces here are showing that those people are not getting touched. But then that could be, a couple of thousand people that stores can't afford to just miss out on. So that's why they say, okay, let's make hexagons uh, to make like perfect little areas. What thing that they use when they're creating this is the central place theory. The central place theory, they decide what area is the most profitable. So when you're talking about the area that's most profitable, you're thinking about, okay, where can I afford to buy this land at, get the most customers that's willing to pay for this service, and how far are they willing to travel to get this service. This central place theory was introduced by this guy named Walter Christaller. Make sure you know his name, Walter Christaller. Once again, he's looking at Germany. So when, just for the record, we got von Thunen and now we got Walter Christaller. They're both in Germany. They're both looking for a place where when they decide where businesses should be located. Now, first thing they look for is range. Range is the area that people are willing to travel to get that service. Here it is in here in the book. If you see it, I don't know if you can see my clicker. Ooh, I can get a highlighter. Awesome. All right. I can't believe I just said that on the mic. All right. The range is the maximum distance people are willing to travel. Okay, my click game sucks. All right. Let me see if I can get this. Ooh, yeah. All right. So the range is the maximum distance people are willing to travel to use the service. All right. Based when they do the range, they create a radius. So they got that center point, and then they just draw it out. Y'all know how we had a little point, and then you go and go all around in the circle. All right. The range is going to be higher for special services. Special services is like places, or let's say a service that people are willing to travel really far to get to. Those like the once in a lifetime things. So like a concert. You don't gotta have concert places every other block because if it's a concert, people are spending $100 or so. Beyonce they spending about $1,000 some dollars to go see. So people willing to travel far for that. So you don't have to have a concert hall all over the place because it has a very long range. That's why we have certain teams. So we got that one football team that can people travel from all over Chicagoland to go see the Chicago Bears. Once you get too far, that's when you got to try to create another team. But the range isn't enough. I mean, because everybody want to see the Bears, but you also got to look at threshold. Threshold is uh, the amount of customers you have in that range. Because now you can say, okay, people are willing to travel 20 miles to go to a Bears game, but you can't have it in, let's say, Colorado's a bit. Let's say Montana. You can put a city right in the middle of Montana, go 20 miles out or 30 miles out, and you won't be able to have enough customers to fill a large stadium. So that answers your question why there's no NFL teams in Montana. There's not enough people in Montana that's willing to pay for that service. Actually, they don't have enough people to fill up the stadium. That was a joke, but not enough people that's willing to buy a ticket to go to that service. You guys remember a couple of months ago I was saying they wouldn't have a Lamborghini store across the street from the school because across the street from the school they don't have enough people within, let's say, 20, 30 miles that's willing to buy Lamborghinis. But you see a lot of Lamborghini dealerships in Abu Dhabi because if you go 20 miles out from any given block, you're going to have a lot of people that's willing to buy a Lamborghini. So you got to have a place. First, you got to say how far are they willing to travel. Then you got to say, do I have enough customers? Do these customers meet my threshold? So threshold is how many customers you need to survive. Okay, and you definitely need to try to make sure that the service that you're selling matches your customer base. For instance, they wouldn't open up at LA 10 probably in Richmond Park. People want to go to their local 10 shop, so they want to be close by. Um, if you look at the demographics of Matson and Richmond Park, you're not going to have enough people that need a 10. So, but they do have a tan shop in Orland Park where there's a lot of people that likely want to get a tan, um, but not in Richmond Park. If you know what a tan means, you know that's when you sit out in the sun so you could darken your complexion. Typically, not activity that you see a lot of African Americans participating in. So those one of those little places where you need to know. Um, cool story if you think about it. Look around your neighborhood in the next couple of days. You'll always see like um, a check to go or currency exchange in close proximity to a liquor store. Ask yourself, why do you always see a liquor store next to a currency exchange? Then try to look out, see is there a local apartment complex next to it. And it sounds kind of messed up when you think about it, but it makes sense. So you have people with lower income housing who typically don't have those bank accounts. Not, I shouldn't say typically, but it's a chance if you had tried to find 1,000 people without a bank account, there may be a place you want to look. And then when you have people who don't have a bank account, who maybe have lower income housing, they may not be employed as much. People that's not employed as much, they're around the home where they're free to drink alcohol throughout the week. So you have a liquor store that can serve those customers that alcohol throughout the week. All this stuff correlate, and it's kind of amazing when you look at that. That's agglomeration. That's agglomeration in negative light to some people. So that liquor store that's in that area or that currency exchange in that area, they say, okay, people, they need to be in walking distance because for our services, they probably don't have automobile to drive real far. So I needed walking distance from maybe low income housing. Also, at threshold, I need enough people in this local area that can come and support our services or use our services. So they calculate the range, the threshold. Once they put those two things together, they figure out the market size. So the market size, that's when you put that threshold and that uh, range together. Uh, the market size, thinking about, uh, lost my train of thought. Once again, you shouldn't be looking at TV while I'm talking. All right, that market size is pretty much part of that market analysis. Okay, that's when you get the range and the threshold together, put it all together, draw out your little circle, and then you're done. Let me see if they got a pen here. Penny, 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 penny. Nope, that's not it. Is that an arrow? What does arrows do? Probably make arrows. Okay. All right. I was going to draw a little picture for you guys, so I know you guys love my artwork. All right, we'll move on. Next, finding optimal location. When you're finding optimal location, you're saying what is the best place to reach my customers. You guys, once again, you know I was talking about Lagrange. I thought about Lagrange when I seen this. Lagrange is the street on in Orland, you know, where you see all the stores and everything. It says the gravity model predicts the optimal location of a service is directly related to the number of people in the area, inversely related to the distance people must travel to access it. The things I was talking about when you're thinking about market analysis, it goes hand in hand with this gravity model. So you're assuming there's a lot of poor people in this area. They're in the thousands. So most likely they can use the service of this store. Just like downtown near Michigan Avenue, we have a lot of affluent people in this area. They number by the thousands. Optimal location, right on Michigan Avenue. I should open up an Apple store where people go, or I open up a Tiffany store that sell diamonds and jewelry to these people. That is the best location. Um, Usually, you see it in a linear settlement. That's when you have like these main streets. We definitely have main streets in Chicago. Halsted is full of stores, whether you're in the south suburbs, that's near the Dalton area, all the way to Chicago. Same thing with Cicero, all the way from Midway Airport, all the way down here. Um, you see stores constantly. It's a gravity model. They know people are going to come there, so you got a lot of residents that line those streets. All right, that's a perfect settlement. Chicago is known for we got basically probably five main north and south streets, and then we have numerous east-west streets. Famous ones you guys probably familiar with is Lincoln Highway. We got 159th Street, 147th. Those like main corridors where we had this linear settlement where people know this is a place where it's probably good for customers. It's an optimal location where people are willing to travel there. They can get back to their homes. All right, so picture this being Lagrange. People can get to Lagrange and they can hop right off and go to their little subdivisions that line their street. Well, you know, a better example would probably be Cicero. All right, because we got Cicero going straight through Madison. That's the road that you take going through Madison when you cross the train tracks. All right, people go straight into their neighborhoods and they come straight here. Also, optimal location could be right off a highway, a major highway, where we know people are going to be. The farther people are from a location, that's this part set show. The farther people are from a location is the less likely they're able to go there. So if there's a Jules in Orland, but then there's a let's say a Walmart right here in Matson, why would I drive to the Jewels in Orland? Most likely, I'm gonna go to the local Walmart. Um, Usually, the more specialized service you have, the farther people will travel. But if you're selling normal products, people pretty much won't be there. That's why they have to have a McDonald's in every neighborhood because no one's gonna say, "Oh man, I gotta go to the city to go to McDonald's." All right, people are they go to McDonald's because it's convenient, because it's close to their home, all right, because it's easy to get to. They're not willing to travel that far. So usually they use this gravity model. They're going to come to a place that's close. All right. Let's see here. What's next? All right. Um, the hierarchy of services. That's basically what I was talking about. We have the real specialized places. People are willing to travel very far, so they have a larger threshold. So if you look at these boxes, the pink boxes, these like major things like airports, concert halls, government buildings. So like we're willing to travel far to go to state court, or we're willing to travel far, like I said, to go to the Twitter Center or the Allstate Arena. We're willing to travel far for those places. Oh, look at Disney World. Disney World has a huge threshold. People are willing to travel. On the second tier, if you can see this dark gray, these are big settlements, but people are not willing to travel as far. So that's like a nice restaurant. Like me, I go to Golden Corral. Just kidding. But nice restaurants that people are willing to travel to. That's a specialty, or if event like a Dave and Buster. So maybe a major movie theater. Those places where you have those big services. You can get to the next dark gray. Those may be places like the local mall. People willing to travel to. People usually not willing to travel that far. I know they got the outlet malls that try to break the mold, but pretty much people don't usually do that too much. All right, then you got these smaller places. These smaller, I guess it's turquoise. Not that good at art. Um, those smaller turquoise things. Those are like I said, the local grocery store. Especially like a convenience store. It's convenience stores all around. If you just need to grab a quick thing of milk or bread or something, uh, places that you're not traveling far at all. Places that you'll get irritated if somebody drives past it to go somewhere else. But that's usually like grocery stores, especially fast food restaurants. No one's traveling far to get a greasy burger. All right, but a lot of this is studies from Chris. The last one, rank size distribution. Now this is kind of difficult. Kind of wish I went this in class, but I think you guys will be okay. All right. I'll be honest with you. It's basically gonna be a chart for the quiz. So you just need to know rank size rule versus primate city rule. The description of a rank size rule. Rank size rule. The book try to confuse you. Basically, for each next city, it's always like one size smaller. Okay, it's at least half, right? Ooh, excuse me. I'm sorry. It's at least one half of the previous city. So let's look at America. In the United States, you have New York. New York over 10 million people. And then you got LA, which is over 5 million people. Then you got Chicago, which is over 2 million people. And then you go down to like Atlanta, that may be like 1 million people. All right, so it's ranked size. So it keeps going smaller by each city. So you don't have like this one big, huge mega city and then everything else sucks. In the rank size rule, there's multiple large cities. So rank size rule is typically in North America, all right, because we got big cities all over the place. Even if you break down by state, for the Chicago, then you got the Joliet, then you got the it used to be Rockford. I'm not even sure no more, but it's rank size. I kind of messed that up because Chicago is like almost like a primate city compared to Illinois. Um, but just remember, it's America. Why is it here? I'm gonna ask for each one. Why do we have rank size rule? Usually, that just means you have a large population with a lot of money. So if you have a large population with a lot of money, they able to spread that money out. So I don't have to just move to New York if I want to make a lot of money. I can. Oh, you're not supposed to see this. All right. Wow. So that means like if you're rich, you can live in LA. We have Denver, we have Chicago, we have Atlanta. So we have enough money to create these large cities and other places. That means uh, there's money to buy services in other places. So businesses can agglomerate in different places. So we have more than one big national sports team. Like you might hear a country, they all support that one sports team. We got sports team all over the country because you got hundreds of thousands of people in each city that's willing to pay thousands of dollars to go to events. Right now, I'm watching wrestling. People paying thousands of dollars to go watch wrestling, which is not even a real sport. Um, but we have money to spread out services to open up stadiums in different places. So that's why we have rank size rule. Um, and as the cities were getting built, they were spreading out. So as they were uh, obtaining money, they were spreading out instead of just being controlled by a foreign country. All right, like I said, examples is like New York to LA to Chicago. All right, primate city rule. This means there's one mega city, all right, and everything else is like very, very small cities. Okay, um, is usually is more than twice as big. So, like I said, LA is at least half of what New York is. But when you think about the book brought up in London, it says it here, I believe. Yeah, right here in the United Kingdom, London is 8 million, whereas Birmingham is only 2 million. So that means a second biggest city is way smaller than their number one city. So that means it's a primate. When you think of primate, think about Optimus Prime, like the huge thing. Okay, so it's the main city, and everything else fails in comparison to that main city. Um, Now it's kind of confusing because you got to remember in Europe when they brought up Denmark and they brought up UK, the reason why those places have primate cities because those cities were started before the Industrial Revolution. America uh, became a major population after the Industrial Revolution, or let's say during the Industrial Revolution. When as uh, London was a major city even before the Industrial Revolution, so it was concentrated there. So people moved there to get the Industrial Revolution. Um, it was the Industrial Revolution was pretty much mature as America was growing, because as you know, we talked about it before. Most people came to this country, after or during the Industrial Revolution. All right, because we're a country of immigrants, so people were constantly immigrating over. So we was able to spread it out as they came. Versus in the UK, it was already there. Um, Other places that have primate cities, so this kind of confuse you, is LDCs. The reason why, so when England took over other countries, they established what they wanted as their major city. So in Nigeria, they had Lagos. All right, so you got Lagos, was their major city. So that's the one that they concentrated on. So if you wanted to make money, you had to make money with the foreign power. So you moved to their major city. Um, and that became the primate city of those areas. South Africa and Johannesburg, same thing. Um, Primate cities because everything was focused in that one area. Everything else fails in comparison. And you see that throughout the LDCs. The French did it too, like Ho Chi Minh City. The Belgian did it. Kinshasa, um, former Kinshasa is the modern day Democratic Republic of Congo. But in those places, you're either LDC, so where it's typically found, primate city is usually a LDC because of foreign rule, or it was like London and Denmark, where they had. I'm sorry, I should say London. I mean Denmark. It's Copenhagen, which is in Denmark. Um, but those are places that was pre-industrial revolution. Why is there, like I said, pre-industrial revolution or because foreign power? And you got those examples. All right, that should help you with the quiz. Truth be told, I just basically went through everything. Um, oh, let's go back. This one thing I did miss when we were talking about threshold. Remember, I said you got to have customers that can actually afford it. Uh, that's the reason why those places where there's lots and lots of people with a lot of money, they have multiple teams. It's easy, I guess, if you know sports. So, like in New York, I think they got four football teams. You got the Buffalo Bills, you got the New York Jets, and then you got the New York Giants. Oh, that's three. I thought it was another one. But anyway, they have three football teams. You got the basketball, you got the Brooklyn Nets, and then you got the New York Knicks. All right. So you got a lot of people with a lot of money that can spread out. Oh, it's California with four because you got the Oakland Raiders. Then you go across the bridge, you got the San Francisco 49ers. And then you travel low some, and they got the new LA Rams. All right, then you go up for just a little bit. You got the San Diego Chargers. All right, so that's four teams in one state because the state is so populated. They have a large threshold where people are willing to pay for tickets to go there. We got two baseball teams in Chicago because we have a lot of people that can support two baseball teams. So that means we have a high threshold. We got a lot of people that can support two baseball teams. All right. We have that is good enough. I don't want to kill it. This video way too long. All right. Peace be unto you, my brothers and sisters. I hope this helps. How do you turn it off? How do you turn it off? Not screen.